at the top of the stretch with a Phantom Smoke challenged here on the outside by Dr. Duke. And down at the rail, it is a deep cover. Deep cover now looks to get off the inside. And gaining ground here on the outside is a Yarrow along with Brew Pub. Phantom Smoke trying to hold off a deep cover. It is Phantom Smoke in front, deep cover in second. And this is a milestone victory for owners West Point Thoroughbreds as Phantom Smoke takes race 2 here at Saratoga.
Well, that was pretty awesome, wasn't it? Phantom Smoke last summer at Saratoga, last August 21st. He became West Point Thoroughbreds 1,000th career winner. Of course, the great John Embrial with the call, and he gave WPT Nation a pretty great shout out in deep stretch. Phantom Smoke, who coincidentally is actually entered on opening day as Joe Bianca and Jason Blewitt catch up with all of you here on this edition of WPT Weekly. It is, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner of my iPad, it is Tuesday, July the 11th. Joe, a milestone 2022 summer at the spa for the stable for West Point Thoroughbreds. And we are less than 48 hours out as we tape this thing from opening day on Thursday, which is pretty great.
Yep. It's like Christmas Eve. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve for horse players and racing fans. And can't wait to get up there and have fun with you guys up at Saratoga. I know you guys are going to have a great crew of partners pretty much every day out there. And you can't beat it. Saratoga right around the corner. We had a great Belmont meet. I think we're on route to blasting through the yearly wins record that West Point has been holding for a little bit. So it's all good over here.
Beautiful. Now, you have been a busy man. I've been a little busy in Saratoga. Obviously, we all want to come in fresh off a little bit of a layoff, with Thursday being the start of a 40-day journey and 40 nights. Not for me. My bedtime's about 9 p.m., but for other people up in Saratoga, I did the nightlife thing. I'm an old soul now. But anyway, it's going to be a crazy busy summer, as you were mentioning, in a good way, of course. There's nothing quite like Saratoga. But, with you traveling, you spent yesterday down in Bensalem, Pennsylvania at Parks. We'll talk about Don't Look Back at All's big win and a huge turnout of partners down there, which was really, really great to watch via the simulcast feed. But get me and everybody else up to speed with the podcast, with the West Point podcast. I know you're about to dig your heels into.
Yeah, so I love doing this podcast with you, and it's always good to jump on and talk racing and talk West Point horses. I'm also just launched a new podcast with my buddy John Green, who I used to work on the writers' room with when I was at TDN. We're getting the band back together. Got a new show called Rail Talk. It's going to come out every Friday. We're recording our second episode tomorrow. We did our first episode with Ren Carruthers, who I'm sure you're familiar with, who does a great job, the Pedigeek. We talked a lot of pedigree, had a lot of laughs. And we just want it to be a fun, easy show where people can come show their personalities and we can get to know some of the most interesting people in racing. Among them is you, Jason. You got to have you up at some point.
I would be happy to join you guys. I would be honored to come on and talk about the game, my love of the game. I often think, again, now in my mid-40s, just how fortunate and blessed I've been throughout my 20 years plus working in the industry. And again, a lot of people know my story, and it sounds, again, not to be living in the past or anything like that, but I often think, especially on the cusp of Saratoga beginning in 2 days and what that entails, but just how thankful I am that the Floor Park Youth Council was having a family day at the races back in early summer 1993. That first trip to Belmont with my family, it changed my life forever. Love racing. I know you do too, and pretty much everybody listening. So without further ado, we will talk some racing, my friend. And I think a good place to start naturally is way out in Altoona, Iowa. We're going to go to Prairie Meadows. Here's the stretch run of Saturday's $300,000 Cornhusker Stakes. We knew, Joe, going in, Giant Game was, and he's the number one, obviously, in the outlaw colors, the Blue Silks, and he's the horse that's going to pull off a 9-1 upset. We knew he had pretty much gotten back to his 2-year-old form. I think the big question going in, Joe, was how would he do stepping up in class off that win at Churchill most recently, and it was a good effort, and we got a resounding this is a 4-year-old colt worth keeping tabs on. He was sensational, an awesome win last Saturday.
Yeah, he was great. And I love horses like this that show a new dimension as they get older, because he was never a front runner going back, even his Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which, we all thought was his best race until he came back this year. He came from off of the pace. It's so cool to see a horse switch gears. Got a great aggressive ride from an aggressive rider and Martin Garcia. And one of the things that struck me about Giant Game, and I'm sure you can expound on this, Jason, is you never know. Being from the last crop at Giants Causeway, crop that numbered just 3 horses. I mean, he's already a stallion prospect, I think, as a graded stakes winner in grade 1 place. But if he could be a major one if he progresses and eventually becomes a grade 1 winner, because they're not making any more Giants Causeways. And he's still just 4 with only 10 lifetime starts. So it's really a distinct possibility that he keeps developing. And I know you remember this, that Dale had compared him and compared his path, at least a little bit, to Roses in May, who won the Cornhusker. And Roses in May was a late developer as well, got his best form as a 5-year-old. So, I mean, he's just so exciting. Beautiful horse to watch, too, just aesthetically. Very beautiful, dark bay. He's got really nice, smooth stride on him, and great training job and a great spotting job by Dale, who had this race. I think we picked out pretty much as soon as he crossed the wire in that Churchill allowance.
Very proud of Dale and his crew. Texted Dale Sunday morning. And again, got an outstanding group of partners and a lot of long-term partners that are in on this horse. So thrilled for the horse, thrilled for everybody involved. And again, texted Dale and Tammy, the both of them Sunday morning. Just a great job all around. Dale's no doubt enjoyed a big rebound type 2023. Like, this is vintage Dale, as I wrote Sunday morning on Chatter, and it's been amazing to watch. The water's going to get deeper. Skippy Longstocking's a nice horse, hard trier, kind of has a throwback vibe to him. If the Whitney is indeed, and again, we haven't done the updates this week, knowing Dale, though, I got to think he's thinking Whitney handicap. He's going to have to take another step forward. Those horses were not Cody's Wish or even Charge It or West Willpower. But look, he's got speed and he's a fighter. And if the Whitney comes up a short field, I would not be against potentially taking a shot. So a great job all around, and congrats to Giant Game. Just a big effort taking and upsetting the Cornhusker. We've also got, go ahead, Joe.
Real quick, Jason, is just, I love when horses do this. He stepped forward from a buyer's standpoint and from a pace figure standpoint, because in the Churchill race, got kind of an easy lead. He fought really gamely, but he had easy fractions on the front end. This time, he had to go 23 and 47 flat, basically going 1 mile and 1/8. Not easy fraction. So he stepped up in terms of the pace and in terms of the final time. You love to see it.
Definitely. And obviously we're all, although super proud of him, again, I think big picture, looking at the big picture, we all anticipate another forward move, that there's even more in the tank, as you had noted, a lightly raced 4-year-old. Just a big effort, and what a sort of a literal nightcap to a big Saturday for the stable, certainly when it came to the graded stakes competition, because Giant Game and the Cornhusker. Earlier in the day, we've got 2 Cherie DeVoe trained horses that both picked up graded stakes black type. Cagliostro had sort of the traffic-filled altering course multiple times trip in the Indiana Derby. Good effort out of him. And here's the stretch run in your neck of the woods downstate at beautiful Belmont Park with Vava, who never really got close to Maple Leaf Mel, but kicked on and really finished nicely against an outstanding field in the victory ride.
Yeah, that was a super nice field, and it was just one of those circumstantial races where as soon as Maple Leaf Mel got loose the way she did, Vava was never going to win that race, because they're both very nice horses, but Maple Leaf Mel is undefeated. She got loose, and she just, this is not the kind of horse who's not going to stop unless she has pressure on the front end. And I thought Vava ran as well as she could have possibly run, given the circumstances of the race. She was closing on the second place finisher. She galloped out well. And yeah, graded stakes placed filly by 3-year-old filly by Gun Runner, still has some upside. Yeah, I was happy to see how well she ran.
So the test, it sounds like, naturally will be next for her. Certainly that as we tape this thing, a couple of days after the victory ride, that is the race that's been talked about the most. I love the test. You're clearly, like I am, kind of a historian, or at least as far as like a love of the game, a real purist. And I know I can be obnoxiously stingy at times when it comes to the history of the game and the traditions. And I say that proudly here because the test for that division is just one of those races. A 3-year-old filly classic at the Spa. Great job by Vava. I don't know. What do you do with Cagliostro? I guess you're looking at the Curlin or the Jim Dandy with him off that race on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if that's coming back a little bit too quick, but I think, any 3-year-old stake at Saratoga makes sense for him. I know, Cherie's been a very very conscientious about the way she's campaigned him so far. She backed off a little bit after he ran in the Louisiana Derby. So, hopefully he can find his way into the Travers starting gate, but even if he doesn't, I think he's still got a big second half of the year ahead of him and then into his 4-year-old year.
Florida bred by Upstart. Again, I kind of feel we're just scratching the surface with Cagliostro, along with Northern Invader, who has settled in. I had shared some video I was happy to take, and he's just a ham all around with Northern Invader, who again has settled into his Saratoga home. He's not all that far down the shed row from Bava. And it's funny, Joe, I mean, and I'm a huge Cherie fan. I know I'm not alone in saying that, but when you size up Northern Invader, Cagliostro, and Vava, I mean, she's got, in terms of like West Point 3-year-old, she's really got an embarrassment of riches heading into the summer racing season.
Yeah, and we didn't get to talk. We weren't on last week together. We didn't even get to talk about Northern Invader, but how impressive that. To me, that, I've only been with the company 6 months, but to me, that's clearly the most visually impressive race that I've seen a West Point horse run since I joined. And it was, oh man, there's the kind of race that gives you goosebumps seeing him basically just canter down the stretch on turf. You don't see horses win by 8 lengths on turf very often, especially, straight maidens like that. I mean, that gave me chills, and that was the capper on a really fun day, not this past Saturday, but the previous Saturday at Belmont.
And a strong season downstate at Belmont. I mean, a great job by all of our horses and trainers. Much appreciated. And let's keep that momentum going as we head into the Spa. And we did, in terms of just like a 4-day sort of break between races on the NYRA circuit, we had actually, and I love Monday, Tuesday, and in this case, in this day and age, now Wednesday action. I love having horses, especially good horses, in on quote unquote dark days on the big circuits. And naturally, parks down in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, they run on Mondays and Tuesdays. And you were down there, my friend, on Monday. I'm still annoyed I didn't bet any money on Don't Look Back at all. I cannot believe she drifted up to 2.5 to 1. But I mean, how about her effort answering, Joe, the big question in the process? Could she handle the dirt? That was emphatic, and that was just a ton of fun to watch Monday afternoon.
Yeah, no, it was great. And she broke great. Ruben Silvera did a good job not fighting her, getting her on the lead, because she hadn't been a front running horse really before that. And mentioned the betting part of it. It hardly ever works out like that. She was 4 to 5 going to the gate and breaks at plus 290 to use sports betting terms, to 29 to 10, almost 3 to 1. That never works. I think I did the math. I think somebody put in a $20,000 win bet on the 2-horse in the last flash. And that only added to the fun, because we had a great crew of partners there. That was my first time at Parks, and everybody made me feel at home. And, we had half of the crowd there. That was really special. But then the people who had bet her at 4 to 5, whatever. This is our horse. We're going to bet her. And then see her galloping past the wire at almost 3 to 1. It just was the cherry on top of a great day. And it was just fun. It was fun being out there, being on a new track, and the energy was great. And it was just, I don't know, I made a joke that in the chatter thread about it, that even the horses were kind of looking at us like, what are all you people doing here in the paddock? Like, this is not a normal scene for Parks on a Monday. But that's a testament to the West Point partners. They show up with their enthusiasm, and they just, they bring that positive and energy to every single start pretty much that we have. And it was an awesome day. It really was. For a guy I had to travel like almost 3 hours each way, didn't even think.
I was curious about your trip, just door to door, how long it took.
Yeah, it was almost 3 hours, but it was nice. I got to have lunch in Philly, and I'm a big Philly fan. I love that city. And yeah, as soon as I got there and started meeting up with the partners, I wasn't even thinking about the trip home or any of that, just because the energy is infectious, and I was just so glad. It was such a good crew. I was glad that she was able to come through for them.
There's nothing like winning a race, man. And she's been a quality filly from day one. Tough to win at Saratoga, any level, let alone a 2-year-old first-time starter, which she did last summer. And again, she was beaten at Gulfstream in her 3-year-old debut. Didn't really love the Tapeta last time at Presque Isle. But even in races, maybe we've been a little disappointed that she didn't get it done because they were spots where you thought, well, there's no way she can lose. I will say she tries hard. She runs hard every single time she goes out there. She's got that high cruising speed, and that's really all you can ask. I'm wondering, and again, we haven't talked to Christoph yet. There's a 3-and-up filly mare, 3/4 dirt sprint PA bred stake on August 21st. Naturally, with her handling the main track with the Plum yesterday, I wondered if that race would potentially come into focus. But don't look back at all.
We all had our sights set on that after the race yesterday. We started looking through the condition book. That was I mean, obviously Christoph makes the final call, but that would seem to line up for her now. In that PA bred company, you got to think it's going to be a similar field for more money, and it seems to make sense for her.
Yeah, she's a runner, man. I'm glad she's in the stable for sure. Now, we as a stable collectively, we start, I guess, our official Saratoga, the right way to put it, on Friday. Thursday's opening day. There's nothing like opening day. I always liked, Joe, even when I worked for NYRA many moons ago, and I spent, close to 20 summers working for NYRA in Saratoga, which was great. Day 2 of the meet was always, at least early on, like my favorite day, because you had all the hoopla and the pandemonium of opening day when, the city, when Saratoga shuts down to go to the races. Friday, it's way more normal. You can have the place to yourself. Yet there's going to be a buzz, no doubt about it, on Friday, day 2, July 14th of the meet, because, well, West Point's got our first runner of the summer. And that is, of course, Battle of Normandy, who is returning to Saratoga. He ran twice up here as a 2-year-old. It is time for him, Joe, in race number 6, which has a post time of 4 p.m. Eastern on the nose, going a mile and a furlong in this near 150K non-winners on allowance. He's had some bad luck, some eventful trips this year. It is time for him to get through and blast through this condition. He runs hard. I think a large part of me, though, I'm tired of having to sort of say, well, this didn't go his way and that didn't go his way. I want a clean trip, and I just want him to run his race on Friday as we go back and take a look at his most recent start, Black Eyed Susan Day at Pimlico, where he had no position at all from post 12.
Yeah, and his running style puts him in that kind of position, and hopefully there will be enough speed on Friday. I got to say, this is a salty one other than allowance. There are a lot of horses who could win this race. Even as you scroll down with Al's Rocket, and then to the outside, you got a couple other nice horses as well. Oglethorpe, Shutters has run near 90 buyers, so I think it's going to take like a high 80s, maybe even low 90s buyer to win this race. Hopefully, he gets enough pace to set him up. 149,500 for a allowance. We have made it, my friend. Saratoga has just obliterated all of its previous records in terms of purse, in terms of purse level, in terms of handle. Like it's really great to see as New York racing fans like we are. But I think it's a tough race. I think it's a wide open race, but I'll be pulling hard for him, especially because I've gotten to go back to the barns a little bit more recently, get to meet some of the West Point horses and the crew. And Battle of Normandy is a total sweetheart. He is just one of the most likable horses in Shug's barn, just a complete ham, like you were saying about Cagliostro. Man, I've developed now a personal attachment to him just from seeing him a couple of times. And yeah, let's get the money on Friday.
Now he's got, again, a tall order in front of him. I still think he's the horse to beat, even though some others, at least as far as, I guess, figures and maybe seasoning are concerned, have run a little faster and or better than he has. Looking at the competition, you've got nearly half of the field dropping out of a race we're about to look at Belmont on June 17th. That's the number 1 Danzig with the Stars. And then moving towards the outside, the number 4 Shutters, who's the horse that has the troubled trip. He gets blocked in behind horses in the stretch. And Al's Rocket, who was the 2 in those classic Affirmed Success colors of Alfred Jr. Who do you think is the main danger here, Joe? For me, it'll probably be Shutters, who clearly took the worst of it, and I thought was probably best in that June 17 prep for Saratoga.
Yeah, I think Shutters and Al's Rocket are the two, probably the 2 horses to beat, because I am expecting a pretty decent pace. And they're the other ones that I think can run with Battle of Normandy late. If there weren't other strong deep closers in this race, I would be more all in on Battle of Normandy, even though I do think he has a big shot. But I think those 2 are the ones that can run with him late, and he's going to have to outkick them. I do think the speed will come back. I don't see, I never say never with the New York turf races, because we've seen over the years, you think there's a lot of speed on paper, and then they just go and, gallop along going 25 and 50. I do think that there will be a competitive pace in here, and I think he's got to outclose those other 2 horses mainly.
And Oglethorpe, too, has got a chance. He's got some speed for Danny Gargan. I watched Slapshot not long ago. I don't know if he's named after Ogie Oglethorpe, but I always think of Slapshot whenever this horse shows up in the entry. So good luck to Battle of Normandy there. And, that luck, obviously, and hardy tidings and safe trips, that really goes for all of our horses throughout the next few days and beyond. We've got not only, of course, Battle of Normandy, Joe, kicking off the Saratoga action on Friday. We will see earlier in the week. In fact, on Thursday, we've got Lightris, we've got Brigadier General. Saturday sees Atomic Blonde in a stake at Laurel Park. Western Command and Domina are at Ellis. So there's a lot going on this week. And I'm looking forward to everybody, but out of town, quote unquote. I mean, for me, Atomic Blonde is going to take top billing, mainly because she's in a stake. And I'm really also anxious to see at Colonial Downs what Lightris can do off, what has she had? About 50 days, just under 50 days. First time for Arnaud Delacour, who's done a really fantastic job for the stable.
Yeah, he really has. I'm really interested to see how she runs first time for Arnaud. And, she's run okay. She had that debut win. She didn't really move forward off that. She ran okay last time. Hopefully she can settle a little bit better earlier in this race, because she's had some issues tossing her head around. I think that's what kind of did her in the second Tampa race, because she just, it was really like a first half mile basically that she was the rider, and you can't recover from that from expending that kind of energy, before they even go halfway down the backstretch. But yeah, you mentioned Atomic Blonde. That's who I'll have my eyes on the most, because I think she's been a little bit unlucky so far in America not to have a graded stakes win. She made the first move in the Orchid and got run down by 2 really nice horses, though she ran a winning race there. The Sheep's Head Bay was just a funky race with an incredibly slow pace, as I was just saying. I mean, look at those fractions, Jay. 54 and 3, 123 and 2. Like those are harness times. Those are harness fractions. Like that's the Hamiltonian pace, I think, this year. And then last time out, she ran really well. She got stuck in traffic. I think she even brushed the rail a little bit, turning for home under Joelle. And she was flying late. I don't know that she was necessarily going to beat the winner. But again, I thought she ran a winning race. I'm excited to see her in a slightly lesser stake than the 2 greatest stakes she's tried in America so far. She's got a lot of talent, and she's, to me, is clearly the horse to beat in this race.
I'm with you. And I was thinking too, looking at the name, I'm like, geez, we just had Bridal Mary win the Chicken Fried Stakes. I'd love to have another Philly Stakes winner in the Big Dreyfus. We'll win the Chicken Fried Stakes at Lone Star with Mary, and of course, hopefully come back on Saturday with Atomic Blonde in the Big Dreyfus. Before we get out of here, my friend, anything over the first couple of days? Because as Joe and I tape this with all of you, or sit down and chat with all of you here on WPT Weekly, Thursday and Friday have been drawn. They'll draw Saturday tomorrow. I mean, anything catch your fancy? Have you, dove in? You like anybody?
I mean, I don't have any super strong opinions. The most interesting race of the first 2 days for me is the Schuylerville. I love that they always have these big fields. We've got 11 horses in the Schuylerville, bunch of horses coming from different directions. I think the Pletcher horse, Wine on Tap, will probably be overbet. There's a lot of different ways you can go in there. I think the Butch Reed horse is really interesting from the rail, but probably is going to have to deal with a lot of speed. How about Gary Contessa, the return of Gary Contessa, putting a first-time starter in the Schuylerville Stakes. Like, that's one thing about Gary that I think the racing office probably missed him a lot, because he's not afraid to run his horses frequently and in spots where seemingly they're in over their head, and they'll pop up and win every once in a while. And I just want to give a shout out to Sugar Treat on the outside from my buddy John Green and DJ Stable, who had a couple of wins over the weekend as well. Had Webslinger run pretty well in the Belmont Derby. I think she's got a look from off the pace in a race that usually, as you can attest, Jason, this race usually has a very, very quick pace and is usually pretty ripe for closers.
Well, it's really dominated. I mean, this time of the year, you're going to have obviously fillies who, for the most part, have in many cases either wired or maybe pressed and won their respective debuts. It's all about speed and precocity this time of year. So you factor in those previous running styles from those early season 2-year-old races where speed is king. And now for many of these fillies, you're talking about added real estate as they go 6 furlongs in the Schuylerville. So yeah, you're likely looking at a very quick pace. But I'll tell you, I was happy. You got an Enticed who sold for $120 in March. We've got one, a 2-year-old that Greg Foley trains, named Dual Guru by Enticed, a Louisiana bred. There's a Maximus Mischief in here. We've got a Practical Joke, a 2-year-old filly. So I was happy looking through, seeing some of the younger sires that are represented in the Schuylerville. We've got some 2-year-olds waiting in the wings by those same stallions. We'll see what they can tell. I had to just kind of shake my head and chuckle though when I saw the Contessa horse is a first-time starter. That would be quite the training feat for a guy. And Gary, I mean, you talk about a personality. I mean, he's one of those guys that could sell, ice or snow to an Eskimo. I mean, that's Gary. He's not afraid to throw things up against the wall to see what sticks, for sure.
He's a riot. And yeah, I appreciate trainers like that who are willing to go out on a limb. And the rail horse Carmelina that I mentioned, Butch Reed by Maximus Mischief, I think we have slight availability on our Maximus Mischief filly, Misenchanted. So would like to see her probably get it done, maybe pump up the value of those Maximus Mischiefs, because I do think he's going to be one of the sneaky freshman sires. And yeah, that's one of the subplots that I love about 2-year-old racing at Saratoga, is seeing which freshman sires get off to hot starts. And then we have our first 2-year-old race in the second race on Thursday, $136,000 purse. So the Schuylerville only $39,000 more than the maiden race earlier in the card. Obviously, black type is up for grabs, but I think the buyer figure in those 2 races are probably going to be pretty similar.
Yeah, for my money, I don't know. Again, we'll see what happens on Thursday, but naturally, perhaps a 2-year-old filly maiden special weight, or the winner of one of those early meet maiden special weights for the fillies, might be every bit as good, if not better, than any of the horses running in the Schuylerville. I mean, that's just the way the game is nowadays. I mean, you might have years ago a really powerhouse 2-year-old filly debut during the spring summer meet at Belmont. That just doesn't happen much anymore. But it's going to be a great summer up here. I've already been to Dairy House. If anybody wonders, I got a quart of vanilla chip, which got to go back for a refill. And weather clearly, Mother Nature, I think, is more important than any other factor going into the meet. The weather up here last summer was phenomenal. I think I read, I don't know, a dozen or so turf races, Joe. It was a little more than 12, but there was a record number of turf races and only a handful of grass races that were taken off the turf. So safe racing, great weather, and it's about making memories, man. Just there's nothing quite like Saratoga Race Course in July and August. It's just the best.
Can't beat it. And I'm excited for my first summer hanging out with the West Point crew. I know you guys do a great job, and it'll be a party all summer. Tommy Bellhouse at the Paddock Bar. I can't wait.
Going to be awesome. As Joe and I sign off, and these will be a regular occurrence throughout the summer and into the fall with the Breeders' Cup on the horizon. But as we sign off, we opened with Phantom Smoke winning West Point's 1,000th career race a year ago. I'd like to send it here to a little bit of a break as Joe and I say goodbye to the greatest horse I've ever seen and my number 1 horse of all time in one of the greatest races in the history of the game, certainly in the history of Saratoga. This is the 1994 Travers Tom Durkin's legendary call.
That has now dropped 7 lengths from the lead. Holy Bull opens up as they pass the half-mile pole. It is Holy Bull who runs an eye-opening 3/4 in 1:10.3, and he rounds the far turn with a 4-length lead. Unaccounted for has now moved into second. Tabasco Cat is still 7 lengths from the lead, and Concern begins to hit his best stride. He has 10 lengths to make up, and Mike Smith lets the bull roll. He's in front by 5 as they come to the quarter pole, but there is cause for Concern. Concern comes on second on the outside. Tabasco Cat is well behind in third. They're coming down to the final furlong. Mike Smith asking Holy Bull for everything he has. Concern is coming hard under Jerry Bailey. It's still Holy Bull desperately trying to hold Concern in final thrust, but it is Holy Bull as game as a racehorse can be coming down to the wire. Holy Bull wins. What a hero. Concern came to him at the end, and it was 15 lengths back to a Belmont Stakes winner.